Before you decide what you think about Palestine, pause for one moment and imagine this: a land so small you can drive across it in hours, yet so powerful that empires, religions, and superpowers have fought over it for thousands of years. What you hear today is usually loud, emotional, and divided. What you almost never hear is how deep this story really goes, and how often Palestinians, especially Muslims, are erased from it. This is not a slogan. This is history. Long before modern borders, before Israel, before Britain, before the Ottomans, this land was known as Palestine under Islamic rule. After the Muslim conquest in the 7th century, Palestine became part of the Islamic world for nearly 1,300 continuous years. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived there, not perfectly but together, under Islamic governance. Jerusalem was not an exclusive city. It was a shared one. Here's something rarely mentioned. When Muslims took Jerusalem in 637 CE, Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab refused to pray inside, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, because he feared future Muslims might seize it. That decision protected Christian worship for centuries. This wasn't conquest for erasure. It was rule with restraint. For hundreds of years, Palestine was not a battlefield. It was a quiet province. Farmers, traders, scholars, olive groves passed down through generations. Palestinian Muslim families can trace their roots to the land longer than many modern nations have existed. Then came the cracks. In the late 1800s, Europe was dealing with its own shame: anti-Semitism. Instead of fixing it at home, European powers supported a new idea: Zionism, which aimed to create a Jewish state somewhere else. Palestine, already inhabited, was chosen. And here's the key detail often skipped: Palestinians were never asked. When the British took control of Palestine after World War I, they made a promise that changed everything: the Balfour Declaration. Britain pledged support for a national home for the Jewish people in a land where over 90% of the population was Arab and mostly Muslim. Imagine a foreign empire promising your home to someone else without your consent. Tensions exploded. Jewish immigration increased rapidly under British protection. Palestinian Muslims resisted, politically, socially, sometimes violently, not because they hated Jews, but because they were being dispossessed. Villages were bought, seized, or cleared. Farmers became refugees in their own land. Then came 1948, what Palestinians call al-Nakba, the catastrophe. More than 700,000 Palestinians were expelled or fled from their homes. Over 500 villages were destroyed. Many of these villages still exist on old maps, but not on modern ones. Entire Muslim communities vanished. Families were told they would return in days. Most never did. Here's something many people don't know. Under international law, those refugees still have the right to return. But decades later, they remain in camps in Gaza, Lebanon, Jordan, while their homes are gone or occupied. For Muslims, this wasn't just loss of land, it was loss of waqf, sacred endowment land meant to be protected forever. Mosques were emptied, cemeteries built over, Islamic history quietly erased, and yet Palestinians didn't disappear. In Gaza and the West Bank, Muslim life continued under occupation. Schools, mosques, charities, families, all functioning under restrictions most people will never experience. Checkpoints that decide whether you see your hospital, permits that decide whether you can farm your own land, walls that cut villages in half. Here's another uncomfortable truth rarely discussed. Palestinian resistance did not begin with rockets. It began with strikes, petitions, boycotts, and appeals to law, most of which were ignored. Over time, frustration turned into anger. Anger turned into cycles of violence. But focusing only on the reaction, without the cause, removes Palestinians from their humanity. Muslims in Palestine are often portrayed as extremists. But what is rarely shown is this: families breaking fast during Ramadan under drone sounds, fathers praying in Aqsa knowing access could be revoked tomorrow, children memorizing Quran in homes that may not exist next year. Al-Aqsa itself is a symbol. It is Islam's third holiest site, and for Muslims its control is not politics. It is faith. Repeated raids, restrictions, and provocations are not security issues to those who worship there. They are violations of something sacred. Despite everything, Palestinians remain. Their resistance today is not just armed. It is cultural. Food, language, embroidery, oral history. Even saying, "I am Palestinian," has become an act of defiance. This is why the story of Palestine refuses to end. Not because Muslims want endless conflict, but because people who are pushed out, silenced, and blamed rarely stop demanding dignity. Palestine is not just a headline. It is a wound that was never allowed to heal. And until the world understands how it began, not just how it looks now, the arguments will continue. Because this land was never empty, and the people who lived on it were never invisible. They were just ignored,